Chapter 45. Halos 3 araw din ang itinagal namin sa Maynila. Kahit pa natapos ang birthday celebration ni Sian, ay nag-extend yon dahil sa paggala ng grupo. Kaming magpipinsan ang huling umuwi dahil mayroon naman akong unit doon. Kaming 5, kasama si Sian. Ang mga nagliwaliw at sumulit sa bakasyon. Aside from the various trips and bar hopping, Sian and I made a point to check out our chosen medical school where we will be for the next years. Most of my batchmates had also chosen their institute, at kung hindi man ay abroad. Papa too wanted me to resume studies abroad but I declined. Ayoko maging mag-isa na naman. At least dito sa Maynila, pwede niya akong dalawin kaagad o ako naman ang uuwi. Dumating na ang araw na uuwi kaming magpipinsan at tanging si Sian na lamang ang maiiwan sa kanyang relatives. Ito ang naghatid sa amin sa airport. Will you reply to my chats now? Answer my calls? Sian leaned on the side of our vehicle once he finished helping the luggage. As far as I know, I don't really reply to you at all. Nakangisi kong sabi, ngunit yun naman ang totoo. Why wouldn't you want to reply at all? He repeated my gesture and looked at me dumbfounded. Humalakak ako. I'm always busy, pretty boy, and you're busy too yourself. Palipat-lipat ng teritoryo. Lumitaw ang nahihiyang ngisi ni Sian sa katotohanan ng aking pahayag. Sikat na sikat ang isang ito sa school namin at syempre, lalaki, kay rupok nga naman pagdating sa babae. Siya ang tipo ng lalaki sa dami ng babae. Sa unang tingin ay malaanghel pa rin. My relationships were always private. I always see to it that everything was discreet and I wouldn't look like a fuckboy. Tumaas ang aking kilay. Casanova? Matinik? Yes. He answered without a heartbeat. Because you are. No? No? Why so? Ngiti ko. Napanguso lamang si Sian. Hindi naman ako katulad ni Arjun na kung sino-sinong babae lang ang pinupormahan. Hindi po pwede sa akin ang maganda at sexy lang. I've always liked a daring, passionate woman. It's quite a turn on. Tumango ako sa kanyang katapatan. That's the first thing I want with all the people around me. Honesty and complete trust with themselves to say the truth. And of course, a woman who wears scrubs and knows how to cut open a cadaver, he added and giggled. I personally wanted to keep that sweet giggle in my sweet jar. Gusto mo na pala lahat ng mga ka-department natin, ano? Although if I recall correctly, there was one time you dated a veterinary student, a pretty girl with a very malaking mouth. Oh, Chris, don't ever remind me of that girl. He shrieked, but his act stopped when Arjun was finally done. Say cheese! Mabilis ang pagkilos ni Romina, ngunit mas mabilis si Sian. Bago pa maklik ay nahablot na ako nito kaagad at naakbayan. And die. Beth rolled her eyes at us both. Muntik nang maghabulan sina Arjun at Sian na sa labas, kaya naman napailing na lamang ako. Gwardiya pa rin yan kahit sa barkada, pero kapag siya'y walang makakapigil. Kasama naming naghintay si Sian at hanggang sa huling segundo ay naroon siyang nakatanaw. The familiar southern wind blew me a kiss when we arrived hours later. My soft curls adjusted with the wind as we strode inside, away from the blistering sun. I slightly adjusted my retro sunglasses. It felt like years away from home. Hi, Mang Julio! Bati ko sa aming driver na sumundo. He saluted back as I sank into the seats. Nagkanya-kanya na kami pagkatapos. Dahil sa pagod ay nagkawayan na lamang. Nakarating kami kagad sa bahay at pagod kong inakyat ang aking mga gamit katulong sina Ingrid. I showered and had a long sleep on my bed. Nang bumaba ako ay malapit nang bumaba ang araw. Nagutom ako kaagad sa naamoy na nilulutong carbonara. Narito na po ba si Papa, Nanang? Nahihipnotis mo ako habang sinusundan ang amoy. Nagising na pala ang prinsesa. Hinarap ako ni Nanang Telma at saka tumango at tinuro ang itaas. Kadarating lang din at halatang pagod. Alam mo naman si Gob, parang ikaw na hindi mapirmis ng bahay. Mag-ama nga kayo. Halakak ng matanda. Napailing na lamang ako sa kanya. Dinungaw ko ang kanyang niluluto. Sobrang saya ko nang makitang patapos na yon. Doon na ako kumain at saka naghanda ng merienda para dalhin sa itaas. I ascended to the house office, balancing the tray on my hands. Waves of nostalgia hit me and my whole body shook. Nagpakita sa aking isip yung mga panahong waitress ako sa isang lumang ngunit sikat na bistro. Palagi yung puno, lalo na kapag Biyernes at tuwing gabi naman ay laging may inkwentro. Naalala ko sina Japet, Ivan at Cindy at kung gaano ba kalapit ang lugar na yun sa puso ko. I'd like to visit there sometime. Maybe before classes start once again, just to see how it turned out after all these years. Maybe I can arrange something. Hasang-hasa na ang aking mga kamay para balansin ang tray sa isang kamay. Kumatok ako sa pintuan at binuksan yon kaagad. Sumilip ako at nakita si Papa na nagbabasa ng mga papeles niya. Pa, why are you always working late? I hate to see you working. Sabi ko at saka maingat na iniluwa ang laman ng tray sa kanyang desk. Nagbabasa lang ako and you call this working already? Hani Papa habang ini-inspekto ang karbo at juice. Proud na proud ako sa sarili ko kahit na hindi naman ako ang nagluto. Oh, please, Papa. You worked even harder than the president. I bet that you will eventually die working when you win the elections. Aba, mukhang gusto mo na yata akong mamatay ng maaga. Halakhak niya, ngunit kumunot ang noo ko. Umiling ako kaagad. I take it back. Nasabi ko na lang. Well, I have a present for you, Pa. If you want, you can have it now, I said, changing the subject. Nang tumango ito ay hindi na ako nag-atubiling tumakbo patungong kwarto ko. Kinuha ko ang isang maliit na box. What's this? Papa inspected it like there was a bomb inside. I laughed like a maniac. It's a present, so you have to open it. I stayed a couple more minutes with my father. He appreciated the fleur-de-lis cufflinks I got for him. And there's where I learned that he'll be out for a business trip. Isang linggo yun mahigit at kagad akong nanlumo. Umalis na rin ako pagkatapos niya akong pangakuan ng Jimmy Choo. Days passed by and I always hope I wouldn't run out of summer days. Napagod at napagastos ako sa birthday ni Sian kaya naman sa bahay lamang ako naglalagi. Sa aking hammock kung saan umiidlip at nakikipag-video call sa aking mga pinsan. When my eyes and my energy was spilling and I was so dead bored, tumungo ako kila Kuya Victor. His 90s style villa made it homier. Kulang yata kayo. Ngiti sa amin ng may bahay. Si Romina at Beth lamang ang kasama kong nakikipaglaro kina Agot at Yuna dahil si Arjun ay may inaasikaso. Well, he's with Melody again, his girlfriend and soon-to-be dumped ex. Romina shot her head up while helping me fix this giant dollhouse in the middle of the living room. Baka seryoso na siya, Romina. Halakhak ni Justice. She caught my line of vision and I just shrugged. Well, he can't be with that type of girl. Arjun likes his girls sophisticated. Like those alpha female type. Challenge. Justice's eyes were full of amusement. I looked at her and wondered what did my Kuya Vic saw to make her the love of his life. She's certainly not an aggressive alpha female type like what Ramida just said. Justice was a simple woman. The one you could easily read. So, what was it exactly? Isang tawag ang nakapagpatigil sa aming lahat. Mabilis na kinuha ni Justice ang tablet at sumulpot kaagad ang mukha ng aking kapatid. Nakita ko ang mga French na salita sa isang resto sa background. Daddy's here, Yuna! Tumungo kaagad si Agot doon sabay hila sa kapatid. Well, we three waved at the cam and Kuya Vic chuckled from the chaotic view. Hindi na ako nakasingit pa sa pag-uusap nila. Out of the country pa rin ang aking kapatid. Kaya wala siya rito. Well, nakafocus lamang ako sa blueprint ng dollhouse nang marinig ang aking pangalan. What is it? I faced Beth who called me. Hinuso nito ang tablet. Kuya Victor carefully explained why Arjun wasn't here with us and it's not because he's with Melody. Naatasan nga raw itong mag-asikaso ng business dahil halos lahat ay busy. He's out of the country and Papa too. Then I remembered what happened in Manila when Arjun took over. We're not studying law, Rumina flatly pointed out after the request. That's what Arjun is for, and that's why you study business, Rumina. Sa bahay na lang ako dahil wala naman akong connect sa inyo. Kiwit balikat si Beth. I nodded at her. So was I. Sa screen ay hinilot ni Kuya ang sentido. Tumagilid ang aking ulo at tumaas ang aking kilay. Sa huli ay ebidente ang naging pagpayag sa kagustuhan ng aking kapatid na tumulong kay Arjun. Mas mariin itong tumingin sa akin na tila ba ako ang sasalo kung sakaling hindi maganda ang kinalabasan. Habang nagmamaneho ay puno na ng kunot ang aking noo. Sinusunog ng aking kalmadong mga mata ang daanan at mahigpit ang hawak sa steering wheel. I was not still sure if Gab accepted my cousin's proposal or if he was just the only business partner we're meant to handle. I was admitting to myself that I wouldn't like it even if he chose both. I want him out. Inaamin ko dahil sa totoo lang ay ayoko na ng drama sa buhay. Gusto ko ay umiwas na lang dahil ang katahimikan ko lang ang importante sa akin. And there's perfectly nothing wrong with wanting peace in oneself than rather charge towards the enemy. Tapos na nga ang lahat, papalakihin ko pa ba kung ipapamukha ko sa kanyang eto na ang naabot ko? I enjoyed my success in silence. Halos 2 oras din nang magkita-kita kami sa lokasyong ibinigay ni Kuya Vic. Inipit ko sa isang tenga ang kumakawalang buhok dahil sa hangin. Isang mamahaling restaurant ang bumungad sa aming tatlo at doon na kami pumasok. We asked the receptionist under Arjun's name and there was no record. Nang sabihin ko ang isa pang apelyido ay natantusan ko iyon kaagad. Tinaasan ako kaagad ni Beth ng kilay. Well, I read it earlier. Sabi ko na totoo naman. Nakita ko kaagad ang pamilyar na likuran ni Arjun, ang kinis ng kanyang batok at kakulutan ng buhok, ang kasama ng 2 pang lalaking naroon. I didn't know who the other one was, but his face looked like the mischievous version of the stricter one. This is my sister, Ramina, and these are my cousins, Beth and Gab. You know Chris already. As if he's expecting us. Arjun stood up and introduced us 3. The 2 followed suit and extended their greetings. This is Jerome Damiano, Gabrielle Damiano. Girls? We all sat down and I can feel the strains on Arjun's back. He's really taking this seriously. Pinaayos muna ang table bago kami naupo. I politely declined the menu, all the while feeling like my skin was burning or being burned by someone rather. Nanatili lamang ako sa aking kinauupuan na kalmante. Matalas na kaagad ang tingin ni Romina sa aming mga kaharap, ngunit si Beth ay nag-uobserba. I caught her eyes and she nodded towards Gab. I nodded back. Arjun was the first one to open the topic about what was all this. He came up with a plan since we're needing land properties for the upcoming election. I read his proposal to my father yesterday and I found his idea of building orphanage and home for the aged really impressing. A deep velvety voice rose next to fully explain what would be expected from those properties. He was laying the numbers down and his voice smoothly delivered it. Gab perfectly showed that he was very the very business mogul that he was. We have all the original and the copies of the land titles. The portfolio of the sites was here too. If you need to see the statistics, we can provide it. Gab's thick accent was threatening to take over. Unti-unting tinulak ni Jerome sa kanyang kapatid na panay ang sulyap sa akin ang mga importanteng papeles. Romina was the one who opened it, her eyes skimming over the numbers and the investment proposition. Tahimik na tahimik ang aming table. Sumandal ako sa aking upuan at sa kaunting galaw na yon ay napasunod na naman sa akin ang mga mata ni Gab. Sinalubong ko ang kanyang mga mata. His thick eyebrows highlighted his long lashes. Unlike the last time, his expressive eyes were no longer burning. He's doing business, and the void of emotion on his eyes was unnerving. Sinagupa ko iyon ng akin. Ang dulo ng aking mga daliri ay bagyang tumatalunton sa ibabaw ng table. Batting my even longer lashes, our emotionless eyes matched. Bumaling ang aking ulo ngunit sa kanya pa rin nakatingin. His eyes darted to my collarbone and the vein on the side of his neck pulsed. Tumikhim si Jerome na ngumiti sa akin. Kumunot ang aking noo rito ngunit wala akong nasabi. Nang ibalik ko ang tingin kay Gab ay naroon lang talaga ang kunot sa kanyang noo. Lumilitaw ang nakatagong pagpipigil sa kanyang mga mata. I looked down at his arms. It was thick veins protruding, and his larger finger was tapping against the tablecloth. Sinundan ng aking mga mata ang kanyang mga mabalahibong kamay. Arjun, Romina finally closed the folder and her eyes demanded her brother. Kumunot ang noo ni Romina at muling tiningnan ang folder. She shook her head at Arjun and looked at the two gentlemen in front of us. The numbers are not quite like I predicted, she commented, looking at Jerome's brother more thoroughly. Is that a problem? Ngiti ni Jerome. Umiling si Romina at nakipagbulungan kay Arjun. Beth made a few points herself about this juncture but I stayed quiet. Patuloy ang pagtatanong ni Romina ngunit si Jerome lamang ang tagapagsalita. His brother, too, stayed quiet and unreadable the whole time. Kumunot ang aking noo at binuklat ang folder. My hand slightly touched Gab's hand. I dismissed the electric shock threatening to break me whole. My temper quickly rose as soon as I read it. Naging kalmado pa rin ako nang harapin ang dalawa. If I were the client, I would accept it. Imagine owning hectares of untouched land by just these little numbers. Pinitik ni Jerome ang mga kamay. Oh, I wouldn't call this little. Romina shook her head. What made you come here all the way from Manila? It was the first time Beth spoke out loud. Sinisipat nito si Gab. Allegiance? Politics is not our thing, miss. Palitan ng mga salita ang nangyari sa palibot ng table. Mahihina lamang ang mga boses ngunit panay ang batuhan. Hinayaan ko ang aking mga pinsan na makipagpalitan ng puntos kay Jerome. At si Gab ay nanatiling tahimik din at nagmamasid. Ang mapag-obserba niyang mga tingin ay dumapo sa akin. At hindi na bumitaw pa. I made an observation of my own that he was just wasting his money in this. He doesn't care that he'll lose prized properties over this table, right at this moment. His brooding eyes swept over me, over and over again. Repeating the same process where my skin he laid his eyes at. Hindi nanawa ang kanyang umaatikabong proseso. I leave a call, tikhim ni Arjun. My lip twitched in rebellion. Ugh. Jerome smirked as if he just won a bottle, and Gab's eyes remained darkly. Nakasulat sa mga mata nito na alam niyang ito ang mangyayari, na siya na naman ang hari. He knows he's in charge again. I hated it. We'll consult the higher-ups and give a call for the confirmation. Arjun finalized. Doon muling natahimik ang lahat. What he said could only mean one thing. We weren't declining. It was a good outcome. Good only for him. Beth sternly shook her head in dismissal but Arjun has the lead here. Nagtapos ang aming tensyonadong meeting sa pakipagkamayan ni Arjun sa mga lalaki. Siya lamang ang tanging nakangiti. I stared ahead and led the way out. We four exited the vicinity. Arjun cursing too loud with happiness. At dito na po muna magtatapos ang ating pagbabasa sa ngayon. Kung nagustuhan mo po ang episode na ito, pahit naman ng like button dyan. At kung hindi ka pa nakapag-subscribe sa aking channel, pahit ng subscribe button at bell all na rin para ma-notify ka sa mga bago nating uploads. Maraming salamat muli sa pakikinig at antabayanan ang susunod na kabanata. Hanggang sa muli.